Cyber attacks aren't just about people in hoodies in a dark room somewhere behind a computer screen these days. You've all heard about the dark web, where credentials are available for anyone to buy. There's a market for the data, and there's a market for accessing that data and getting ransom from it.
Right, yeah. I don't know what I could do with all this candidate information and client information from this person's database. Somebody out there does, and they'll pay me for it.
Exactly.
Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk. I'm your host, Nitin Sharma, founder of RecTools.io and co-founder of RecCircle and Chief Nine Officer for the Recruitment Curry Club, details of all of which will be in the description. My guest today, I'm welcoming him back for the second time on the podcast now, is Kan from Avensys Tech.
Nice to meet you, sir.
A RecTools recommended service provider with your kind of IT needs for your recruitment business. The last episode that we were on, we spoke about in quite a bit of detail about kind of maximizing your Microsoft licenses, right, and getting the best out of what you already pay for. Today we're going to talk about security, IT security, and the importance of that within sort of a recruitment setting. The liabilities that you're at risk for, but also, actually, more importantly, that it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg to implement and sort out. So it shouldn't be something that you just ignore.
Yeah, and also the fact that if you do ignore it, and when things go wrong, then you're left without potentially means to carry out your business.
Yeah.
Which, the cost of which is, anyone's guess.
So look, I ran a recruitment business that we scaled up to 15 heads, right? Between me and Tristan, we were the IT department. We were the ones setting up laptops. We were effectively muddling our way through trying to set things up, right? And cards on the table, the reason that I didn't take things like security and IT security very seriously was because it feels like it's just a bit of scaremongering and it doesn't really happen. Because we're just a small recruitment business in Coventry. Why the fuck would anyone try and hack us? Do you know what I mean? Give me a bit of clarity on this. Why should I give a shit? Because I don't think it happens as often as we'd like to think. Or am I wrong?
I mean, the stats out there in the market are that 50+% of UK businesses have been affected by some form of cybersecurity incident. Okay, so statistically, you're likely to be affected by something at some point, right? And it's around.
What can that something be?
Well, it could be anything. So, cyber attacks aren't just about people in hoodies in a dark room somewhere behind a computer screen these days. I mean, you've all heard about the dark web, where credentials from perhaps even your granny are available for anyone to buy, right? So as long as you got a credit card or a Bitcoin wallet or whatever, you can buy the details. Now, how do those details get there in the first place? Well, it's by you accidentally clicking on a link or going onto a compromised website. Or a website that looks so legitimate that you think it's the real deal, right? So there's a lot of ways in which criminals are working to get you information, because there's a market for the data and there's a market for accessing that data and kind of getting ransom from it.
Right, yeah. So it's not even a case that actually somebody wants your data to attack your business. It will be, I just want to get this so I can sell it.
Correct.
Because there'll be somebody out there who wants to do something with it. Or,
exactly.
I don't know what I could do with all this candidate information and client information from this person's database. Somebody out there does, and they'll pay me for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
So there's a whole supply chain around it, right? And so what it means is it's so democratized now that people can access it so willy-nilly, right? And pay absolute peanuts for it, right? But obviously there's different levels, right? The bigger the company, the higher the amount of money you're going to pay to get it. So so there's a whole $1 million business out there, $1 billion business, whatever you want to call it, that actually there's trading. There are buyers, sellers, and brokers in this trade.
Really?
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just like buying data.
It's an industry.
It's an industry, just like recruitment, right? So once your data's out there, the next thing is, when are you going to get attacked? Well, a lot of these attackers then use spray and pray tactics, where they just randomly just take a list, go through it, or don't even go through it themselves. They use machines to go through it. And at one point, one of those things is going to hit. And once it hits, then they're in, right? So, for example, with the Marxist Fencer attack recently,
Yeah.
we know that people were inside the environment for months before the actual attack launched. I learned recently from someone at Looply that they worked on a case where the attackers had been inside the environment, managed to get through all of their document shares, etc., email boxes, etc., found insurance documents that they had for cyber liability, then called up the insurance provider or emailed the insurance provider through the legitimate emails, right, without leaving any traces, to up the insurance premium,
Right.
pay to their own money for that insurance premium to be upgraded, and then a month later, bang, they cryptoed the company, asked for ransom, and when they called up to say, well, we don't have insurance to pay for this, we can't pay you, and they said to the owner,
Yeah, you do.
well, you do, check your certificate. And yeah, so that's how they got in. So it's not just about causing disruption to you, but it's also getting that insurance claim out of you. It's about other things as well. So it really depends. Motivation could be just a teenager, right? The other day I made this LinkedIn post about teenagers these days, or even kids getting access to this information. It's so easily available. There's AI at your fingertips to kind of help you with trying to learn how to do these things. It doesn't take a genius these days to carry these things out. Now, if you remember from the Marxist Fencer attacks, you had two networks involved. You had a network called the Scattered Spider, and then Dragon Force. So Dragon Force is like a should I say off-the-shelf ransomware kit or provider that can give you all the whole solution, end-to-end solution, right? They go and do the dirty work for you, or you do dirty work, part of the dirty work, etc., and you split the profit. So there are ransomware as a service these days. So it could be anyone from a disgruntled employee who wants to get back at you for something, to a competitor who wants to screw you in the market, to just a bored teenager who has nothing better to do than say
disgruntled candidate.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that could be it as well. So it could be anyone, or your ex-girlfriend. You never know, right? So
no, do you know what? That's a really good point. Yeah, because you just immediately sort of go, you write it off as like it's not going to happen to us. Why would it happen to us, right? I haven't annoyed anybody. I'm not in that space. I haven't really got anything valuable. But actually, if you've got insurance that covers it, well, there's an angle. Somebody wouldn't, if you've got
insurance doesn't necessarily cover you, Nitin, because insurance.
No, if they go and up the premium like they did in the example that you gave. But yeah, you're right. You've got to have enough measures in place, right? It's correct. The same as going, I left my door unlocked, I got robbed, but my home insurance will cover me. Well, no, it won't actually, because you need to make sure you lock your door and prove that you did that.
100%. And again, when it comes to home robberies, that's a great example, because you can say, well, you weren't really targeted. You could have been, because you had less security, because you got a street full of houses with flashlights and cameras and blah blah, alarms all on, and your house doesn't have all those bells, then it's easier for them to target you and get into your house, because it's not going to make a lot of noise. Right. So what we're talking about today is how you get those flashlights, those alarm bells, and everything onto your house without having to pay a massive premium, like everyone tells you to.
Thereby preventing somebody from even considering trying it with you.
Well, they will try it, but whether or not they get through it is another question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a few examples today as we talk along. I mean, security is kind of split out into different segments, right? So you have device security, which is to do with your mobile phones, your laptops, whatever. You then have your actual environment security. So you're talking about your Microsoft 365, your or Gmail or whatever you have, right, in place, right? And then you have obviously the security element of awareness, right? So your users need to be aware of how to detect things, because the number one reason, or the number one, here we go. A system can be 95% secure. Yeah. And 5% of the remaining 5% is down to the user. Okay. But that user accounts for 90% of all hacks that have taken place, or breaches that have taken place.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So
I'm with you.
You can have the best security in the world, but if your guys aren't trained or are aware of what to do, then if they target you through social engineering or whatever
you can have the best home alarm system, but if you didn't turn it on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that there's that. So from a cybersecurity perspective, the attackers aren't just individuals in hoodies in a dark room trying to target you for a business. It could just be someone trying to get lucky, right? Or someone who's disgruntled.
There's any number of angles,
exactly.
Isn't there? Yeah.
So
you made a really good point while we were texting back and forth, because it's not just a case of people attacking you, but actually there's often times where they'll use you as a way to get additional information and therefore kind of leverage onto something else, right?
100%.
So I think, because after you said that, I was sort of like, actually, it's a really good point. When I ran our recruitment agency, we used to have our candidate registration forms. Now, within that registration form, we would ask for proof of right to work, which would often be a passport, and proof of address or the residency and all that sort of stuff, which would be, anything from a utility bill, bank statement, driver license, something like that. And they would also have their national insurance number. We'd have all this information on file, which, to the wrong type of person, I can take out loans, credit cards, all sorts in this person's name, and they would never have a clue.
Yeah.
And then when this crime eventually comes out, and the authorities do the investigating that they're going to do, if that comes and lands on your door and go, this was your business's fault.
Yeah, you're liable for something. Yeah. But that's a very good point you're highlighting.
So this isn't just about this person's trying to shut my business down or hold me to ransom. Actually, no. They can using your business, gateway into your candidate database, get all this information. Especially if you're in we were accountancy and finance. So these were people with generally, typically speaking, good credit ratings. Own their homes and that kind of thing, and therefore access to funding in their names would be incredibly easy and a lot. And if they've done that over 100, 200, 300 candidates.
Yeah, of course.
And each one of them comes back to you and they're like, here's another 50 grand loan, here's another 50 grand loan, here's another 50 grand loan.
Yeah.
This is all on you to pay out and sort out now. I don't think your insurance company is going to stand by you very long.
No. So there are, that is a real possibility. So in terms of, they get in to get the data that's about your candidates, which then holds you liable to GDPR fines, etc.
Yeah.
But the other angle to this is obviously they can get into you to target your clients.
Yeah.
So what do I mean? Right. Well, your clients could be big name, big ticket companies, right? They know that you're the official recruiter for this.
Yeah, company. You're a supplier to them. Yeah.
Therefore, maybe there's a job that's advertised as you, and they know that, okay, so this company is recruiting for this company, right? They may even go through the process to find out who the actual company is, right? Once they've gotten in to your doors, right? What they can do is they can email or communicate with that company as you without you knowing if you don't have the right protection.
So cloning your email. This is
correct. So there are things that you can put in place. I mean, Ben from I forget the name. Quinset speaks about this quite a lot with DMARC and DKIM and SPF and stuff. So essentially having those protections in place stops people from spoofing your email address, right? But obviously it doesn't stop someone from taking over your mailbox and sending emails out, right? So the idea is, what if your client got an email from you with a link that they click on, right? Which wasn't actually sent by you, or a document saying, hey, CV for great candidate. They open the file.
Yeah, they've got malware or ransomware.
They've got malware ransomware into their environment.
Right? And again, that comes down to
you because exactly. So you're the weakest link. So again, there are two ways of looking at this. They could be getting into you because you're a search firm. You've got the data for a lot of top billers or high hitters. And of course, that data is going to get leaked because they get in, they take it, and so on. Or they could use you to send them emails, right? So there's a lot of attack vectors. It's not just about you. It wasn't you, but it could just be you.
See, this it makes sense, and I get it, right? And actually, if I think about it, we had situations where I'd have members of staff say to me, like, why did you just email me? And when you just talk to me, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And they show me an email and it'd be like, can you call me urgently? This is private, blah, blah, blah. And it was the go and buy £100 worth of Amazon vouchers. Or Apple vouchers and give us the code, right? That one. Which one of my staff fell for, actually. She bought
Okay.
£300 worth, and then called me and was like, "What's going on?" Well, what do you mean, what's going on? Where have you gone? She went, "I went to the shops like you told me to." And I was just like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Right? You have those, and then we would have where we would kind of look at it and go, "Hang on a minute, something's wrong with my inbox because all of these emails that were coming through from a particular place are all." They're not coming in, and you're saying I've sent you this email, and I'm like, where is it? And then I check my rules. I'm like, hang on a minute, there's a fucking rule set up here to take any email from this domain and push it somewhere else, or auto forward. Do you know what I mean? And so you think, oh god, yeah, these things are quite bad. But I guess where the skepticism comes in is none of us have ever really heard of a recruitment business being fined hundreds of thousands of pounds or having to go into bankruptcy because of a cyber attack. So therefore, it becomes hard to then kind of be like, no, I can justify the cost of the cybersecurity implementation. Do you know what I mean?
So it's difficult to know these things because a lot of it's anonymized and not reported properly. So you can't really find out who got hit and why they got hit.
Unless it's like in the media, right?
Unless it's in the media. So I've been in a company once where things have gone to pots where ransomware was present. It caused 3 days of downtime for them. They had 100 plus staff that couldn't do anything, and these were pre-COVID when ransomware was initially emerging.
Yeah.
Obviously, the bigger players have now implemented systems to kind of prevent that from happening again. However, the disruption it causes when that happens, and recently I got a message from one of our clients where they had been getting their staff had been getting emails, and these aren't emails that are coming into staff mailboxes internally because we've put in place protections to stop that from happening.
Yeah.
But this is staff getting emails in their personal mailboxes outside of work, pretending to be the owner of the company to say, I need you to do this, blah, 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 blah. So just like you described. But obviously some staff didn't think twice about it, whereas other staff did. And obviously it's not coming from their legitimate domain, but obviously they created a mailbox with a similar-ish sounding domain to try and attack. And this is a recruitment company, right? So there's a lot of this happening out there, and it's scams, right? So there's scams like the stuff that was going on LinkedIn this week with Booking.com.
I saw that. Yeah, a good mate of mine, Robert Woodford, had something similar happen to him. It did make me go back and check my things. Like, hang on, I've done quite a lot with Booking.com recently.
So the Robert Woodford,
tell us more about that one.
So the Robert Woodford one, I was reading that article yesterday, and I made a comment on it, and I said, well, from what he's describing, it sounds like the hotel got compromised.
Yeah.
So
the message came through the Booking.com system.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas the other ones that we saw about people going to Thailand and which I think Francis posted about.
Yeah.
Where they went to Thailand and the villa never existed. That's slightly different in a sense because that's a scam of the platform itself.
Yes.
Whereas here, what's happened, by the sounds of it, again, I'll have to speak to Robert. I haven't spoken to him, but from what he described, it sounds like the hotel got compromised, which meant that they were then communicating with people that were due to come in to stay with them, sending them links, which obviously, as the official hotel, they're going to trust it, right?
Especially if it's come through Booking.com as well.
Well, yeah,
on their messaging platform.
Of course, because they've got access to the Booking.com platform as a hotel. So there are things like this that could happen. And think about your candidates, right? In order to complete this job, you need to pay us this for this certification or this thing. So they could send out links like
holding
that.
Deposit or whatever it could be.
Yeah. And of course, if the candidate's quite keen on a job, they might just do it.
I guess the point is it's getting more and more sophisticated, right? And
every day.
Whilst you can't almost look and go, wow, it's never happened to us before, so why would it happen now? Well, actually, it's more likely to happen now. Because there's any number of things that can happen, right? And like we've gone through quite a bit. So what's the cost for me to sort this out? Because the fact is...
before we go to the cost...
Go on.
I want to put another story into play. So we did a test sometime at the beginning of this year where we were putting in dark web monitoring, etc., into our environment,
Mhm.
and we provide dark web monitoring for all our clients. It's part of our standard service. So we had an account that we then logged on to a website that was malicious, and we
Mhm.
knew it was malicious. Within 6 hours and or so, we saw attempted logins into that test environment that we had set
Yeah.
up. Because obviously the attackers had gotten the information. That information is now
Yeah,
they're
immediately
they're
they're
verifying.
away, new info,
They're
let's dive in.
verifying
Yeah.
whether this works. And then next thing we know, over the next 12, 48, 72 hours, there's hundreds and hundreds of login attempts onto this environment, Microsoft environment, from everywhere in the world. So we saw things from China, the usual African countries, South America, even the United States, Europe, wherever, yeah. And they could use VPNs to mask where they're from anyway, because they were probably trying the conditional access we put in.
Yeah.
We'll get to all of this good stuff in a minute. but essentially the point is that the time it takes from the point at which you've entered that information accidentally into a website or an email link, whatever you get, to the point at which the attack starts is not too much from what we've seen. Okay, so coming on to your question about how much this costs. Now, Nitin, I'm not going to stay here and tell you that cybersecurity is going to be cheap, but I'm also not going to tell you that it's going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Because look, here's my take on it, right? It's easy for me to move from Google Suite to Microsoft.
Yeah.
Because I'm already paying for something and therefore I can reallocate that budget. It's easy for me to move from Bullhorn to any better CRM because I'm already paying for a CRM. Do you know what I mean? When I've got my budgets are in place and so on, it's easy for me to make those decisions. And cost plays a factor, of course, but so does quality and so on and so forth. When I'm not currently paying for cybersecurity, it's hard for me to then go, okay, because of this thing that is potentially a risk, that hasn't been a problem for me yet, I now need to find an allocation of funds to put towards this.
Okay.
So most people are going to kind of be like, that's cute, that's great, but I'll risk it.
So here's the thing, right? So Microsoft 365, if you're on the right package, which is Business Premium, which I kind of recommend to everyone because of the the value that it brings, has all of the protections that you need if implemented correctly. That's the key point, to protect you against all of these sophisticated attacks, right?
Interesting. Okay.
And the other thing is that it's not just about having the tools. Obviously, implementing it, like you said earlier before the chat, it's like not having having a lawnmower and paying someone else to do your job for you. Microsoft 365 needs to be configured properly in order for it to be secure. Out of the box, it's not secure. All of the boxes are ticked yes to make it as accessible as possible. I don't know why.
But it needs configuring to your particular business,
Correct.
Your setup,
Correct,
how you work.
So it needs to be customized. Just like when you buy a CRM system, you need to customize it to your workflows, right?
Okay.
So.
Is that you? Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then.
He's a busy man. His phone's been going off the entire episode.
And then
It's all his cyber attacks.
And that's not cyber attacks. That's customers. I'm always accessible to my customers.
Except for when you're on the podcast.
Except for when I'm on the podcast, admit it. And that whole thing. Put your phone on silent, but I forgot to take it out of vibrate.
Hey, no, mine went off literally as we did the intro, so I won't worry about it.
There we go. So coming back to this, we practice internally at Avensys Tech something called the NIST Framework. Okay, so NIST Framework introduces 5 key pillars plus something called governance that stretches across all pillars. So think of it as pillars and a roof.
Yeah.
Okay.
With you.
And so these pillars of security are identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. We see a lot of people speaking about detect and protect. They don't necessarily speak much about identify. They don't much speak about response and recover. Okay, well, recover maybe because a lot of people try and sell you backup tools and stuff, right? So let's go through these things. So what is identify? Well, identify means knowing what you need to protect. So the first step of anything is knowing what the problem is, right? So what do you need to solve? That could be your client data. That could be your devices, that could be your mobile phones, how people access those mobile phones, or your email system or your CRM system or whatever it is.
So it's looking at your vulnerability points and going,
Exactly.
right, we know where we are potentially vulnerable.
Exactly.
Right.
Like a house, all the windows, the doors,
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
entry points, blah, blah. And where are your crown jewels?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Knowing where they are and what's being used. Because sometimes the problem is you could have a disaster and you wouldn't know what to actually recover or where to go to get that data. Yeah. Next part is the protect element. So the protect element is putting in place the right tools, processes, and sort of training procedures,
So
etc.
relevant levels of measure. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm with you.
To then safeguard what you've identified.
Mm-hmm.
Then detect is knowing when something untoward has happened to what you protected.
Yeah.
In a house example, it's your burglar alarm, right? Or that flashlight that goes off.
Trick switch,
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Whatever it is,
yeah.
Or
I'm with you
laser that you don't trip over. Home Alone style. And then the other part is obviously response. So response is, what do you now do that you've now detected some breach in your systems?
Mm-hmm.
How do you respond? Do you respond by pulling the plugs out? Do you respond by notifying the clients or affected parties that there's something going on that's going to affect the service you provide? A classic example of this is how Marxist Fencer was responding to the cyber attack, right?
Right, okay,
or how Co-op did it better by, they had got attacked by the same thing, but their response was better than Marxist Fencer's at the time. Okay? That's why they got off lightly. And then recovering is how do you get back to where you were from where you are now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's the framework we work by. And the good thing is that Microsoft 365 with Business Premium gives you your ability to implement the detect, protect, and the identify if needs be, right? The respond and recover is down to you as an individual because you have to plan it. It's more of a kind of a textbook exercise, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the recovery is down to things like immutable, which means unmodifiable backups. Because what happens is often when an attacker gets into your systems, the first thing they're going to target is your backups, and they're going to corrupt those because then they've got more leverage.
You got no way of yeah.
So it's important to have immutable backups, and immutable backups doesn't mean costing you an arm and a leg, right? So you can get backup systems from anywhere from £2.50 to £3.50, depending on how much storage you want.
Is it fair for me to argue the point here? And I'm going to do this because I'm playing devil's advocate.
Please
is it not fair for me to argue the point that my backup of my CRM, for example, is my CRM provider's responsibility? And so is the security of my data. So if I was to be attacked by whatever, there's a level of onus that I could put on my CRM vendor and be like, well, what the fuck's going on here? Or how have you guys managed to get hacked?
If it was a SaaS provider, right, and they got hacked, then yes, 100%, it is their problem. But it also becomes your problem very quickly because now you don't have access, you can't work. So, but then with SaaS providers, you can't take backups, right? So you're at the mercy of these guys, right? And it's the same with Microsoft 365, right? But the difference with Microsoft 365 is that you are in charge of your security, right? They'll provide you the tools, but you need to use them how you need, right? So coming back to this whole costings thing, with Microsoft 365 Business Premium costs about £17.75 a month these days. That gives you Gartner-rated security tools, Magic Quadrant tools like Defender for Business, and Defender for Office 365, which protects your emails, your Teams, your OneDrive, your SharePoint, blah, blah. But also, crucially, two other things, which are Entra ID, which helps you implement conditional access policies. And that's very key these days because it's a form of multi-factor authentication and enforcing that, right? But also using other things like location, the device that you're accessing from, and so on to enforce how you can access the systems. And then finally, and I know this is very tech heavy, finally you have Intune MDM, which is a tool that allows you to manage your devices. Okay, so you've probably heard of mobile device management platforms, etc.,
Mm.
like SOTI or,
Yeah,
or whatever
yeah.
you call it, that you can get to, make sure people don't do anything on it.
Switch your phone
Things
off.
off.
Yeah,
You don't need to buy those because Microsoft comes with it, right? So Microsoft can manage your phone.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
It can manage your laptops. It can manage your desktops. It can manage everything. MacBooks, like today, I'm unpacking a Mac today, but that's all managed through Intune. Okay, so if someone were to leave, I can switch it off. If someone were to join, I can immediately build a new device for them.
You touched on this last time, didn't you? Yeah. Okay.
But it also allows you to push out security. And what I mean is configuration settings. So turning on and off switches that may, protect you against sophisticated attacks. And they're called attack surface reduction. So that means you're reducing the number of vulnerabilities you have on a device. And with Defender, it has a vulnerability scanner that scans your environment for possible vulnerabilities that are detected by Microsoft and others and tells you, okay, so you need to fix these things. So what my team does is actively, on a weekly basis, keeps our client secure by implementing these vulnerability tasks.
So the obvious question in my head then is going to be, okay, I get it. A lot of this stuff is included in what I'm already paying for because most people I know are on business premium, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm already paying for that. So I know where this cost is now going to come in. It's going to be with the consultation fee of somebody sitting down with me and going, right, we need to map out your business, tell you where everything is vulnerable, and then it's going to cost you X amount on a day rate for me to come in and close all these doors and lock them properly and give you the keys and the... Do you know what I mean?
But it doesn't work that way. So what I'm trying to say is security is not a one and done thing. Security is an ongoing
It's an ongoing,
right? And, I'm not going to say, you can't leave it for a couple of months and then come back to it. You can't approach it every quarter or something. Yeah, it's an active role, right? And if you look at, for example, we manage licenses only for one of our clients who's kind of stepped back from what they were doing previously to go back to full-time work.
Okay.
And so they've got a tenant that they don't pay for support, but we provide licenses, and we can see over a 6-month period their secure score, which is another product available within Microsoft 365 that tells you how well protected your environment is,
right,
has gone from 85% down to 45%.
Wow.
Okay, so if you don't keep it up, it's going to slip because every day there's new vulnerabilities that are detected. Yeah, and there are things called 0 days, which were always in the code that they didn't know about, right? So, and these things get discovered. There are people actively called bounty hunters that hunt for bugs in code that can be exploited to gain access.
I heard this, yeah. I heard that Apple actually pay people to exploit and kind of take down parts of their infrastructure just to be able to be like... rather than have these guys come to us and hold us to ransom, we'll just go... And there's websites you can go on where it's like, they'll pay $6,000 for this, 50 grand for this kind of thing.
Correct. Yeah, there's millions and millions of dollars to be made by finding bugs in codes, right? So that there's an active, market for that, and companies bid for these things. And it's not only companies that produce the software that bid for those vulnerabilities; it is the criminals themselves and nation states. So you have people like North Korea, China, blah blah, Russia, also paying these hefty fees for people to find vulnerabilities in software.
Right.
Okay. But coming back to this whole discussion about how much it costs and stuff, well, you'd be surprised to know that, after years and years working within the industry, one of the things that I really hated was people selling me software that I didn't need and not telling me, how can I use what I've got already properly?
Yeah, well,
before looking at things like Sentinel-1, things like Mimecast, or in fact, I'll tell you another story. People sell email security, and I did a test towards the back end of last year and early part of this year, where we went up against things like Mimecast, Symantec, the likes of Checkpoint most recently. And there was another software, I can't remember the name now, but a big ticket within Barracuda. So we tested all of these against Microsoft 365 and Defender properly configured. The result being that nothing actually got through. Okay, so if you configure your Defender properly,
that's the point,
part of your Microsoft 365, then you're not going to have these issues. Okay, and you don't need to waste money on products like Mimecast, products like Barracuda, products like Checkpoint, because ultimately they're going to add up.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where the cost in cybersecurity comes. A lot of people sell you cybersecurity tools, scare the living shit out of you, and say you need to buy this tool to sort your shit out.
Yeah.
What they don't tell you is you've already got something packing in your package at the moment that can sort everything out for you, because they're not going to make money that way. So you might ask me, how do I make money myself? Well, we go through a comprehensive onboarding process with our clients when we take anyone on board. And part of that comprehensive onboarding process is implementing 350 plus points within Microsoft 365, where we tune and fine tune, right, to make sure that you're protected to CIS NIST standards, right, so that you don't get attacked. In turn, we don't have to panic.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not just your reputation that goes down the drain. It's our reputation, because we were protecting you.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we don't charge people on a monthly basis for this cybersecurity stuff that we do, because you're already paying for it through your licensing. But as part of our support package that we offer to our clients, we manage and maintain your vulnerabilities and any alerts that come off of it.
Yeah.
Right? So you may have heard buzzwords like EDR, kind of email filtering, whatever it is. That's all included in your Microsoft 365 as long as you've got Business Premium. So if you're paying for these tools, then consider, why are you paying for these tools if you've got Microsoft properly implemented? And if you're not, then why haven't you been exploiting what you've already got?
Interesting.
And like I said, with our support packages, we have a very flexible sort of upfront fee of £45 a user per month, which is what we charge, and that's it. And that covers you for your entire cybersecurity stuff, unlimited support tickets on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And that covers you from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we have monitoring in place 24/7 on your devices. So cybersecurity shouldn't cost you an arm and leg. You shouldn't be scared about what the scaremongering is. And, take action, because it's not just people trying to scare you. Yes, there is a point that they're trying to make, which is the world is not secure out there. It's a very scary place. And if you've already got the stuff,
it's not just a case of people trying to get into... Yeah. I think that, my biggest takeaway from this is that, it's very similar when you compare it, like when you try and mentally compare it to people like me working this way, but when you compare it to home security, you know what I mean? It's like, I've got the best alarm system in the world, but I don't turn it on. I've got a Ring doorbell, but I don't charge it. I've got the best fire alarm system, smoker system. It goes straight to the police and everything else, but I didn't pay the monthly fee for it. So it just is there. It's a visual deterrent. Whereas cybersecurity, the visual deterrency doesn't work, and it's not just a case of like a bunch of hackers, as you say, like anonymous style. I'm going to hold your business to ransom. It can just be some little dickhead somewhere. Some little dickhead somewhere who thought it'd be funny to do it. No different to when we were little and we would walk past and scratch a car or, ring a doorbell and run away. It could just be someone just
could be a
doing
kidding.
it because they can. Well, I did it because I can.
100%.
There's no rhyme or reason. I just thought it'd be funny. And it was.
One last thing I want to point out is I see a lot of recruitment companies, particularly the smaller ones, say to people, right, you can use your personal device to log in and do your work, right? Or they buy Windows Home devices, right? There's no management on it, right? Well, you're exposing yourself to bad actors, and I'm not talking about actors like me. I am a terrible actor. Getting into your systems. Right? Because there's no protection in place. There's no EDR software. There's nothing to stop someone going on.
Your business machines might be all covered to the moons and everything's perfect, but you've let this person, which comes down to that
conditional access stuff.
5% piece, right?
Correct.
It's 90% of the issues are created by the 5%, which is the user side.
That's correct. So user training is important. But I'd also like to point out the fact that putting in place controls to stop them from doing stupid things in the first place is as key. And again, like I mentioned, we spoke about conditional access. And what is conditional access? Well, we can limit or restrict where people can access your devices from, or which devices they can access the company
depending on where they are, and
the depending on where they are, which device they're logging in from. To give an example, if you're trying to log on to an Avensys device, i.e. one of our devices, or in some of our clients have implemented this, because some might find it a bit more restrictive, but essentially you can limit what device you log into, right, down to the serial number.
Yeah.
And even then, we have to authorize the device before we grant access to the controls, right? And the device has been enrolled in your Microsoft 365 environment, so it gets all of the policies and settings and security and everything, so you know it's protected. And if I were to accidentally leave it on a train or bus, no one's going to be able to do anything with it. It's bricked. No one can literally get into the hard disk. They can't plug USBs into it. It's good as, chucking in the dump. Well, I wouldn't. I would harvest it for its parts, apart from the hard disk. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah. So unless people need to take security more seriously, and I think part of the reason they don't take it seriously, and I had a phone call once with this guy, who said to me, if I were to hear the word cybersecurity one more time this week, I will literally lose the plot. And that's true. People talk about cybersecurity all the time, and all they're trying to do is sell you tools that you probably don't need.
This is the problem, right? Yeah. This is exactly the issue. And the other side of it is it becomes so technical in the conversation where you just switch off.
Yeah.
People like me don't care. Like, I don't care. Fine, or whatever. It hasn't happened, and then you then default back to the mindset of, well, it hasn't happened to me already, so I don't really care. Or, okay, if it did happen to me, nothing major's come off the back of it, so whatever, I don't give a shit. You lot are just trying to peddle your product or service.
Yeah.
And to be honest, look, that's where I like working with you, and I'm happy to recommend you to my kind of clients, customers, friends, and all of that sort of stuff, because I like your pricing model. In that you pay for a monthly amount per user per month, and it's all covered. And our job is to upskill and train you on, hey, stop paying for that, you've got it here. Don't do that, you've got a version of this here.
100%.
That's where the value becomes, because then I've got no reason to chop and change.
No,
I've got no
100%.
reason to look at I always have this kind of conversation around sort of, when it comes to sales, the reason somebody buys or doesn't buy comes down to two things: cash or creative. Cash, it's too expensive, or it sounds a bit too cheap, whatever. That's a hard thing to get overcome, right? Because if price is the problem, I want to pay this much, you want to charge this much, we'll agree somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Neither of us are happy.
Yeah.
I'm still paying more than what I wanted to, and you're still making less than what you want to and what you feel you deserve to. So neither of us are happy. So if it's a cash thing, you can't really do anything about it. But creative, that's a lot more. We can do something about that. We can, okay, what don't you like? What do you like? What do you want more of, less of? Because we can mold this and amend this. And I feel that we're moving into that world where actually we need more creative solutions rather than cash driven, price focused.
100%. So I'll tell you another thing that a takeaway that I've had. I've decided not to attend any more MSP conferences or events. I recently went to an MSP event in Twickenham Stadium,
right?
Where they were talking about DMARC and DKIM, right? So the email protection side of things, and we had a room full of 30, 40 managed service providers, and the idea was that how do we sell this product to our customers? How much markup are we going to add to this product? And my question to people is, and I say this to our customers as well, is like, I would rather you have access to this tool than get a couple of pounds off the top of it, because if you had access to the tool at the cost that we pay for it, then you're likely or more likely to buy the product and therefore secure yourself. Use it. Yeah. And I was confronted by a customer, I think it was in maybe March this year, where they said to me, right, their current MSP wants to introduce MDR, which means managed detection and response,
Okay.
because it's a new fad for MSPs, right? Let's push MDR because we can make margin. We don't even need to worry about who's going to do it, because MDR is a solution sold by vendors. So, for example, your SentinelOne, and even Microsoft have a form of MDR these days. It's where they have offices full of people who look at alerts that are generated by detection software.
And
take responsive action. And maybe they buy it for like a third of the price, and they sell it for this guy was quoting £12 a user per month to have this solution in place.
Which for a 7,000-8,000 person business, that's big money.
Which is big money, and even if you're a smaller business, right? Well, why would you want to pay extra, right? But it's because of the markup. So a lot of the decision making on the MSP side, with a lot of MSPs, is driven purely by this margin thing, which is where, Nitin, I said I started Avensys Tech to say, let's give customers a chance to have accessible technology at affordable prices, right? And that they can make the right decision for their business without having to worry, well, am I paying too much? Am I paying too little? Whatever it is, yeah? So that's it in a nutshell. It's like, there is a lot of buzz out there about things that you need to be scared of. Listen to it. You do need to be scared. But when it comes to the buying decision, ask the question, well, I have this software already.
Yeah, am I being advised or am I being sold to it?
Exactly,
right?
100%.
That fundamentally is what it's going to come down to.
100%.
Is this person? It's like with anything, right? I say this all the time, that the entire world is a lie. Like, we live in this smoke and mirror world. You can find I was looking at new cars the other day, and I'll go on YouTube and I'll be like, right, okay, this new JQ looks interesting. Let me have a look at it. And there's umpteen independent car reviews of JQ, and I'm like, oh, okay, and they're all saying really good things about it. Oh, this is a bit odd, because they're all kind of in the same sort of format, and they've all got the same sort of okay, this is weird. And then you look into it a bit further, and you're like, their marketing teams paid these guys to do this, so it looks genuine, but it's not. Same with reviews on stuff. You go on, like, we'll go on WordPress plugins, and we'll look for something and be like, 5 best WordPress plugins for this particular thing. And then you go down and it's like, articles written by the creator of the best WordPress plugin, and they've just managed to rank it highly. And there is so much of this out there that I think, you when it comes to this kind of stuff, you've got to look at it and go, well, hang on a minute, is this person telling me this because it's genuinely a good product? Or are they just selling that product to me?
Yeah.
And have now created this aura of, shit, you need this, because without this, it all falls apart.
Yeah, and to kind of round this all up, and I'm sorry that there are people out there that are doing this, because it is the case, right? But how do you weed out between a good supplier and a bad supplier? How do you know? Because ultimately, you're a muggle, not a wizard, right? How do you know whether what you're telling me is the truth, or
true.
what I'm telling you is the truth, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'll throw it back to a conversation I had in a boardroom where I was an internal IT manager, right? And I had an MSP on the other side trying to convince the company that they shouldn't be investing in SharePoint. And I mean by not investing, by just using SharePoint as opposed to putting stuff in a data center somewhere. And I got into a very heated argument saying, dude, but SharePoint is the future. Why would you go backwards, put data in a data center server somewhere, log on to it via VPN, and you're trying to tell me and sit here and convince everyone else that somehow this is going to be more stable than documents on SharePoint? I'm not buying it, and neither should the board. But not every company has me sitting there in the boardroom discussion when that conversation's happening.
Yeah. I'm with you. Mate, this has been incredibly insightful. I will concede and say, no, you're right. We need to take security of our tech more seriously than we do.
And again, it's not about splurging out the money. It's about making sure that you're using what you have.
That's the point. Yeah. You've made some really good points there. Guys, that's all from us. If you want to reach out to Kan, details to kind of get in touch with him will be in the description below. Have a look at your current licenses, and he's very generous with his time, right? So just reach out to him, connect with him on LinkedIn, shoot him an email, whatever's easiest for you guys. Or catch him at a local curry club to you, because he's I mean, the one you're going to tonight, what number is this one? Is that?
I think I've been to almost every single one of the curry clubs now, but well, not the ones within reach.
Yes, I was going to say, yeah,
Within
you've not
reach.
missed one locally, have you? To
No,
you,
no.
but yeah, no, cool. That's all from us. New episodes drop every. All gone. No, it's not all
One
from
last
us. No, it's
thing.
not.
One last thing. Special offer for anyone watching this. You'll get a free dark web scan. Just get in touch with us to see whether your credentials are already out on the web, dark web. It takes about 72 hours to run, but we'll get back to you with the results. We also have a free DMARC sort of tool on our website that can tell you whether your emails are, properly set up. So take advantage, and I hope to talk to one of you soon at some point.
There you go. What a great offer. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Nitin.
so much, man. This has been really good. Guys, that's all from us. New episodes drop every Wednesday, every Friday. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, and doing all the cool shit that you guys do to keep us number one. Thank you.
Thank you.